All right, welcome to another episode of the Vets and Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Will Curtis, and I'm joined by, well, just me. We're actually finishing up our first full year of running this podcast and building the community that came out of a vision of what I wish I had when I was transitioning out of the military. That's ultimately what this whole thing is what I wish I would have had in a community that I wish I would have had built around the things that I needed. So as we've kind of wrapped up our first year, we want to sit down and look at the top 10 things that our guests collectively have come together and said, this is what I wish I would have done, or these are the things that I did that made me successful. So we're going to start off with the top 10 things that they are. The first one that we're going to cover is going to be talking about having a financial plan. Now, the beautiful thing about being in the military is you get paid on the 1st and the 15th, unless you're furloughed, but that's a different story. It may be a little too raw for some of you guys going through it right now, but the fact is you get paid on the 1st and 15th, and it is regular. You know that you're going to get paid. Lenders are okay because they know the government is going to pay. So you have that financial stability. Many real estate careers you move into, especially those that are in more brokerage or sales oriented, now mean that you have an irregular income. You don't get paid on the 1st and the 15th. You may get paid in January and then get paid again in April. Many are not set or planned or prepped to deal with that type of financial stress or pressure that could be coming from that sort of it. And you also have to have your spouse completely on board with that as well. Now, some of the things that we have explored and things that can help you in this aspect is, one, look at, if you have a spouse, having them have regular income. That's helped many that get through the rough patches when they're between sales. Two is to look at your disability rating. What are you rated? Are you rated 50? Are you rated 100? That can be the difference between keeping the lights on or not. At 100%, you're making somewhere in the ballpark about $40,000 or so a year. It's maybe not enough to get rich, but it's definitely something that you can pay your bills, feed your kids, and do the things that you need to do just to simply survive most days. The other thing is that you need to sit down and build up a nest egg. Some of the best advice we've seen is to basically have a year's worth of income and then pay yourself a steady income. Hey, I want to make $100,000 a year. Let's get $100,000 in the bank, pay myself like that. And all I'm doing is replenishing what that looks like or what that would have been. The next thing we hear as a best practice, find a mentor and prioritize networking in those groups. This is what I wish I had, and really a lot of the reason why we started the Vets Real Estate Podcast is that I didn't have a mentor. I had some people that kind of guide me along the way. I don't want to diminish their opportunities or their inputs into what I did, but I never had somebody who was just looking out for me to help and grow me. If I would have had that, that would have been a much different path that I would have been on. And I think many of those that had found success or struggled to find success and then found it later was finding the right group of people, the right relationships to have to where you are a part of a community and you're growing. Find that mentor, somebody who's been down the path who can help you in those ways so that you can grow and ultimately find success quicker, faster, and maybe without as many growing pains. The other side is the network. Building your team, the people around you, whether it's you're going to be a brokerage, you need to bring your lenders, your property managers, or whatever the case happens to be, finding that network of people, especially like-minded, helps in that transition, especially as you all are trying to grow and build that business together. So that's the second bit of advice, is to build a network with the basically mentor that's going to help you put it there as well. The next thing that came out, number 3, would be the extremely hard work that it's going to take and ultimately the resiliency. I can remember my first handful of months making cold calls, and it was forget you, other choice words, lose my number, stop calling me. It was miserable. So because it was miserable, I didn't want to do it until things started to change. You had to build the relationship, you had to build the strengths, and you had to build the resiliency to where you could go through those tough times and keep going. That's really what kills a lot of new real estate agents or real estate professionals is building that business because it's on you to build. If you put 80 hours a week into building your business, you will find that business grows faster. So that's all important things to do is understand it is hard work. It is not just showing up and telling people you're now a realtor or you're now a lender or whatever the case happens to be, and they're going to show up. You got to work it. You've got to sit down and do the work so that you can grow that business. The next thing we hear over and over again is to become the expert. When we become the expert, you are honing those skills. You are in that niche to where you are the go-to person. Now, in commercial, which is where I practice, we talk about that on product type. Go be an office, an industrial, a retail, a multifamily specialist. By all means, that is important. But even if you're looking at residential sales, are you starting off with luxury? Are you going into affordable? Are you going into first-time home buyers? Are you going into veterans? These are all things that while you can do a few things out there on other aspects, if you are the expert, you are going to excel because you're not going to go wide and shallow. You're going to go deep. And you're going to find that you're going to have much, much, much more success by going through there. I'm going to trust somebody who does VA loans with my VA loan because that's all they do. That's all they know. That's what they specialize in. So find those opportunities to niche down and build the right set of expertise that make you a truly trusted expert. The next thing we're going to look at is really leveraging your military experience to build trust and tie this into your why. So the thing is, most civilians like the military. There's some respect for the military. They know we're going to a career field that doesn't always pay the best. You're going to be asked to do crazy, wild things that some of us may kind of just, it's normal for our side of life. So leaving your family for a year to go fight someplace and then to come back and deal with all the things that we deal with, that seems normal to us. But for a civilian, that seems like a wild, crazy thing to do. And there's some respect and admiration for it. So while maybe not overly done, tying into your military service and such is going to help build those relationships. And if you can show your why, what you're trying to do, absolutely is going to help sell what you do, why you do it, and why somebody should ultimately trust you. Inherently, most Americans trust the military. They trust military veterans. Military veterans, by and large, have a positive view from the public. So while I'm not saying extort them, go out there and maybe lean into it a little bit. Maybe not overtly, but lean into it. Don't be afraid. Don't shy away from that experience. Now, the other thing that it gets brought up as well to find success is going to be your training. One of the things that you're going to notice very quickly is you are moving into a brand new career field. You don't know anything. You may not know the math. You may not know the laws. You may not know the best ways to market. You may not know how this and that go together, and that's okay. You are starting in a new career. So take that new career and work and get the education you need. Some of that's going to be book knowledge, sitting down, studying, learning, going to audibles, reading books or listening to books, going to conferences, sitting through classes, even above and beyond what your licensing requirement does. Those are things that you need to look at. One of the best advice I ever got early on in my military career was from my dad, who said, go and see the old guys and understand what they've done to be successful. That means schools, deployments, assignments. So that's what I did. I sat down and saw that most of those senior enlisted that I was around had been to drill or had been to recruiting. I didn't make it that far, but that was in the plan because that's what made them successful. Many of them had gone to tough schools like UMO or those kind of things where it became something that made them successful. So those are things as well to look at and figure out what they did successfully. The same thing happens in real estate. If you see the people in your field that are successful all have a CCIM, go get a CCIM. If you see people in your field all have a GRI or all have the CRS designation, go do that. dive into that training, that education, and some of that credentialing so that you know. And think of this as lifelong learning. The market changes, my business changes. I need to continue to be learning and trying to figure out what that market needs to look like. Now, the next thing that gets brought up is build a system. Now, for military, we would call this a SOP or a standard operating procedure. Like we know how to follow a formula. What I don't think the military does a great job is teaching us how to develop that formula. So sit down and look, find out what works best, study what works best. What I can tell you for any sales role, that is going to revolve around your CRM or your customer relationship management tool. I don't care if you spend tens of thousands of dollars or you use one for free, use it and build your process in there. I can tell you in hindsight, this is one of the things I did wrong where I have an admin who part of their job is to help me maintain this because I got such bad habits early on how to build those relationships and use those tools. As I dive in and use those tools more often, I follow up better. I remember people, I remember conversations. I have notes on people inside that CRM that I need to do and use better. So because of all that, those are things that I have to work on. Those are things I had to build. And those are those process procedures. Once I meet a client, they're going to get that intake form. Once I get that intake form, I can start looking at what they're looking for. I can start preparing for all that. We go out to the meeting. I'm going to make sure I do this and this and this to make sure I get those set up every single time, almost to where it's a checklist. As I'm building my team personally, that's what we're going through. All right, once we get a new listing, we email it to our admin. From our admin, they take it from there. We fill out an intake form. That intake form gives our admin everything they need to start working on everything to build out the information. That's all getting done in the background while I'm going out there and getting the next deal. Now, that may not work for everybody, but that's the things you need to look at. There are books that are still geared towards just building your processes and procedures. I will say one of the better ones that I have read, and you may like him, you may not, is going to be Gary Keller's Millionaire Real Estate Agent. Now, what I will say is that is residentially focused. If you're residential side, you should probably have read that at least once. If you're on the commercial side, I would say read it. And while everything doesn't translate, understand that they're building the system. How do you build your business? How do you build a team? How do you build more time in for you? Those are the things that you're going to look at and you're going to want to sit down and make sure that you are doing and doing well. So focus on building those systems so that you can find that success. The other thing I would also say is to sit down, and we see many of our listeners would say to seek some type of real estate community, especially that are going to be military focused. Now, that's part of what we're trying to do here. Many brokerages have their military groups or divisions, and that's great. And we don't want to take away from that. But unless you're with one of those big brokerages, you don't have that. And that's what we at Vets in Real Estate are trying to build, is build that community. We've got a Facebook group, and we're trying to grow it. We're trying to do better. We're trying to build those relationships. The idea is we'll eventually bring out more events, going to areas, having conferences. These are all things that we want to build in the future, but it takes us some time to get there. So building and finding those groups is going to be extremely important, whether it's you going to the VFW or the whatever else is in your community. By all means, go and find those real estate groups. There are other groups out there as well that are more military or maybe veteran focused, especially on getting business on the residential side, that would be worthwhile going. Build those relationships. And if all you want to help build a community like that, join us. We can use the help. We want to bring in people that can help build this type of community. From there, the other thing we hear over and over and over, and if you've watched any of our interviews, one of the last questions we ask is, what would you have done different? I try not to script everything, but one of the consistent questions we have is, if you could go back and talk to the 30-year-old or the just transitioning you, what would be that advice? And you know what the advice that comes back over and over and over and over again? I wish I would have started sooner, or I wish I would have started investing in real estate sooner. Sometimes we think, I don't have the money, I don't have this, but the downside to being a real estate agent or being a lender or working in real estate is that if you're not investing, you're missing the boat. You should be looking at investing in real estate because at the end of the day, you can't broker deals or lend deals well into your 80s or 90s. Maybe you can, but most of us don't want to. We want to be able to retire or at least scale back so much that we don't have to. Even at that, if you invest and start seeing cash flow coming from your investments on those lean years, you have additional income coming in. You're financially planning and building for yourself. I know agents who make more in investing. They do brokering deals. And for them, brokering deals is what buys them toys and what buys them the next investment and what it's where they look at leveling up. So for them, they live off their investment income. And if they want to raise, they just raise more money so they can get another raise to buy another property. That's a beautiful way to build a business to where you're not stressed about closing deals because you got something coming in. So by all means, start the investing and start it soon. Lastly, the one thing that comes across over and over and over again from many of our veterans comes down to the core values that we were taught inside the military. Many of them, especially for the Department of Defense, is something like duty, honor, and integrity. Doing your best, doing your duty, doing what's responsible for you, having honor, and having integrity. Make sure that you stay in integrity. This business can get extremely cutthroat. It can be extremely difficult, especially if you're in those lean years. And the moments you start to wane on your integrity is the moment that you're no longer that valuable real estate professional to people. That's when life changes. That's when you're no longer who your clients need you to be. So focus on that integrity. Don't lose it, because we see that happen way too often, is where agents will get desperate and then they start doing shady things and they start making money, and they make good money for a while until it catches up. Integrity is going to be important, not only for you, but you as a veteran who's looking at transitioning or already transitioning into real estate. You're a representation of us. If you act in an unscrupulous manner, then you're a reflection of the rest of us military veterans that are going out there into the community and not necessarily representing us the right and the best way. And of course, stay professional. This, I think, is one of the things that becomes a little more difficult for us sometimes, because the military professionalism, we get it, but we also use the F word as a comma. Now, I will say I'm relatively vulgar. I'm surprised I've gone almost 18 minutes now and I haven't said one curse word, but it's something I practice. You got to get used to not using the vulgarity in a professional setting. Now, if you're talking to your team, you're talking to people where you're a little more relaxed, by all means, that's one thing. But when you're client focused, those are things that have to change. Those are things you need to look at and make sure you work on that professionalism, how you dress, how you carry yourself. Those are things that are going to go a long way. You only get one chance for a first impression. So make sure it's done right. Be you, be authentically you, but also be a professional version of you. So after an entire year, that is what we've come up with, is the 10 pieces of advice that by and large our veterans have shared, our guests have shared with us, that have been the biggest things they wish they would have focused on, or the things that made them more successful. If I've missed anything, by all means, throw those in the comments. Let us know. Again, if this was valuable to you, like, subscribe, join our Facebook group. It's Vets in Real Estate on all social media platforms, or Vets in RE is where you'll find the tag on each of those. Join it, be a part of their community, and of course, share this with somebody else who may be in that journey, or maybe it's you, and hopefully this is helpful, and let us know what else we can do to help you on your journey.